Coming up on today's episode, Valentine's Day is tomorrow, but I'm betting you're forgetting one person to be grateful for. And let's dive into my first developer update on my Minecraft plugin, Villager Defense. Up next on Themindhere. Hey, what is up everyone? It's Theguyhere, and welcome back to another episode of Themindhere, the bi-weekly podcast where I talk about new knowledge I learned, projects I'm working on, and current events. Topics may be random, but I hope that with each episode you can come away with a fresh perspective on the universe. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. Alright, to start this off, let's take a little bit of a detour from the developer side of things and just talk about upcoming events. And as of the release of this video, or when I'm recording this, to be more accurate, it's the 13th of February. So tomorrow will be Valentine's Day, and this holiday is typically a celebration of love for whoever. Usually, traditionally, it's been for couples, but it can also be for anyone you love, your family, your pets, just anyone you can think of, really. It's a celebration of love. Yet, I'm betting you're forgetting one person that you should probably celebrate and be grateful for, and that person is yourself. So, I'm reminding you to love yourself this Valentine's Day. And why is that? Well, it's because this is somewhat of a personal thing, and it's that I tend to forget that I need to love myself just as much as I do other people. Remember, you can have a significant other, but you can't really divorce away from your significant self. You're going to be living with yourself for the rest of your life. So you better get used to treating yourself well, or it's going to be hell of a ride through your life. So that's one reason why it just logically makes sense that you need to treat yourself better. And just from my personal experience, I know that I can have a hard time treating myself as I do other people. Words that I would use to comfort other people that I'm close to, or methods I would use to cheer them up, seem almost cringeworthy if I apply them to myself. Yet, I don't think I would want to treat others how I would treat myself sometimes, with maybe beraying of words or just criticisms that are maybe sometimes unfounded or a little too harsh. These are the sort of things that sort of make me question, and I totally haven't figured this out yet, but it's a good reminder to back off on yourself sometimes and treat yourself as you would other people. Sort of like the reverse of the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. If you happen to, if you know and you're conscious enough that you don't treat yourself as well as other people, let's flip that rule around a bit and treat ourselves with kindness, with compassion, with a level of sternness that is going to propel you forward, but not going to hold you back. And when you treat yourself well, and you happen to be single, and let's say you're looking for some significant other, right? And you're thinking about, okay, how should I treat other people better? Oftentimes, I actually believe that you might want to turn back on yourself and work on yourself for a bit. And the reason why is because the more you work on yourself and improve yourself, the more naturally your image is going to improve on other people, and they will like you better. You'll be more attractive to them. And I know for a fact that others will appreciate if you are kind and treat yourself well, if you handle your body well, and you give yourself the love that you need. That sort of emanates from you, and it sort of spreads onto other people. And that's something that is frankly a pretty attractive trait to most people. But it's one that we often forget because we're trying to do things specifically for others, right? But sometimes if you work on yourself, you'll sort of have a carry-on effect and have this attractive trait go to other people, and you'll be able to better love other people. So love thyself, and you'll be able to love others better. So with that out of the way, let's get into the developers update here. I've been working on my Minecraft server plugin called Villager Defense for the past 2 weeks. That's been my main focus since it's been taking a lot of my brain power aside from the various other academic activities and other activities that I've been working on. So in my free time that I have, I've been working on improving and updating my Villager Defense, and the main goal right now is to update it to all versions of Minecraft. Currently, the stable versions are on 1.16.5, and that's because that's the version I started developing it on. But now there are 2 more versions, and some people may want to play versions from the past. So in order to have that compatibility, I've needed to do some refactoring and just moving some code around, adding extra code to make sure it can handle different versions. Now, I came into this thinking that it would be somewhat trivial because most of the game mechanics have already been in there, right? Implemented with that specific version, but it's been implemented. So I thought maybe it'd be pretty simple to just sort of maybe create different classes or have ways to sort of pull in different classes when I need to for different versions. And as it turns out, that was quite naive to think because the dependencies in Java are quite complex. And I've had to learn how to use Maven for managing my dependencies for this project. Now, let's talk a little bit about dependencies first. So imagine that if you have some coding knowledge that you might know that Java is a class, everything's in some sort of class, right? When you write some code and you want to execute it, you want to have it in a class. If you want to have use the object-oriented model and sort of make different classes for different things, different objects of different types, then you're going to need different classes. And as you build more and more classes for your project, it starts to become pretty hectic if you have like 1,000 classes just in one file, right? So then you start to need some things to organize it. And the first level there is usually packages. These just sort of group together similar classes that do similar functions or for a similar purpose, and you put them in something called a package. And sometimes you can sort of differentiate between the two. You can have now 2 classes of the same name but in different packages, and that can be totally fine. So that's a level of organization for your dependencies. And you'll need to make sure that you grab things from a certain package in order to be able to access it. But from there, let's say you want to, I don't know, pull some classes from other people's projects. Maybe they have something that you want to use in or depend on from your project. So now you're going to need to pull in some other people's files. And typically what I did before using Maven was just simply depending on a jar file of the classes that I needed. But with the issue with the multiple versions of Minecraft that I have to support is that it requires different versions of one API. And this sort of jar package that I need to depend on, it gets quite confusing because Java doesn't do well with multiple versions of the same sort of API package, etc. It's sort of the same version, the different versions of the same project. Because sometimes the naming might conflict and it won't know that you want version 2 versus version 3 of the same exact path name for some class. So it'll pull up whatever comes out first and you may or may not get the desired results. So that's the issue that I ran into when I tried to basically depend on multiple versions of that same API that had everything I needed for developing for Minecraft plugins. So I ran into an issue. I didn't know how to do multiple versions, and I started looking into some of the other plugins that have open source their code and are on GitHub. And as I dug through, I realized that, okay, I really need to start using Maven. And the reason is because it can handle these dependencies well. It can basically tell one section of a code, okay, these are the things that you will need, and I'll provide you here. And this section will provide a different thing. And as I looked into it, I realized that this was important because now I can section out the different versions, classes for each different versions and say, okay, this is for version 1.18 and these are the classes in here, you can now just depend on the 1.18 code for the API. And you, for 1.17, you can depend on the 1.17 versions of the code. And that makes it so that there's no conflict anymore within the little modules of Maven that I've got here. Now it knows exactly which class to use and what code to take from. And it was something that took me a while to get to, and also took me a while to sort of implement. So I still haven't fully gotten that figured out. I think at this point I've got a general understanding of Maven and how to make different modules and put classes together, depend on each other, that sort of thing. But I have yet to compile it down and package it into a jar file. So that shouldn't take too much, but I may regret saying that it shouldn't take too much effort there, because that's what I thought with the dependencies here. And another issue that I ran into was that for some reason the method that I used to create different entities that I needed in my plugin no longer works for the latest version. So now I've had to find a different way to get what I wanted, which was to create a sort of holographic name tag in Minecraft. If you play Minecraft, you'll know that on servers you sometimes have these floating name tags, and I wanted to create that, but the way I created it before was no longer working for the latest version. So now I have to go back and find a different way to do it and redo the entire thing. And most of it is actually from borrowing from a plugin that specializes in this, but they have it open sourced and they have a GPL3 license. So I'm borrowing the code there and implementing it into my own, and sort of just noting where I took inspiration or borrowed classes from. But it's been very helpful for learning how to do all of this development. So right now, it doesn't seem like that there's a lot of progress, and even when I release this update, it might not seem like a lot was accomplished. After all, it was the same mechanics, but now it's available in multiple different versions. But behind the scenes for some of these things, that's the tricky thing with when you do things in the back end or infrastructure development, is that it might not seem like from the outside that a lot has happened, but it could have taken a whole lot of effort to get one little piece working or to get things more smooth. So this is an example where the ultimate end user features may not seem like much, but the work that went into making it happen was substantial. So that's the progress I've had so far on this plugin. For the coming episode, I hope to get the dependencies and the different versions supported by the release of the next episode. So 2 weeks from now, I hope to get a version out that will support the various different versions of Minecraft. Now, whether that will happen or not, I don't have a clue. I want to be optimistic and say I can do it by the end, within 2 weeks, but it will depend on how much time I need to spend on academics and other things, how much discipline I'm able to exert on myself to spend my free time working on it, and see how well I'm able to sort of get this project together and understand how this works, and just overall solving the problem of getting all this integrated. So it'll depend on all of that, but I will do my best to get this out, because I know that a lot of people are depending on this, which is something that's interesting to think about, because I started this as sort of a little hobby, but now some pretty legit servers are using it and have had to put it on hold because it doesn't support the latest versions. So I know it's important, and I know I need to get my stuff together to pull through and get this version out. So I'm calling it and saying that by the next episode, I will have the multiple versions supported for this plugin. But that will bring an end to this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate all the support that everyone has given me throughout this process. If you feel like this episode was interesting, or you feel like this series is something that you may find interesting, or someone else may find this useful or entertaining in any way, feel free to share this with them. It means a lot to me. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them down in the comment section of the YouTube version of this podcast. Stay humble. Take care. This is Theguyhere, out.